Our cities are growing. But as new buildings rise into the sky, so too do emissions, pollution, and waste. Because construction is one of the least sustainable industries on the planet. And yet, there are lots of ways to build better. We have several coming up on today's show. Hello and welcome to Eco India. I'm Sanuta Raghu. Now, concrete is literally the foundation of modern life, the most used material in our built environment. But the list of its negative effects is long, including a colossal carbon footprint and waste that chokes landfills. A company here in India has come up with an alternative, a building block that makes use of not just one, but two types of problematic waste.
In furnaces such as this one in Gujarat, metal is melted at 1500 degrees Celsius and cast into various shapes. A material vital to this process is natural sand. Yet, after several uses, the sand turns into foundry dust, a waste material that ends up in open dumps.
Foundry dust is actually a hazardous material which is a byproduct of industries. It also many a times contains metals, heavy metals, which can be harmful, especially for the fertility of the soil as well as the water. Because if this is disposed of without, in open space, and if it comes in contact with flowing water, especially when it rains, then what would happen is that it will penetrate into the soil, disturb the fertility of the soil, and also contaminate the groundwater.
Manish Kothari owns a company in the Gujarati city of Anand that's seeking ways to address this huge waste problem.
If you walk down the bridge near us in our factory, you'll find open dumping of sand and waste and debris all over. Now this problem has started increasing as the industry is growing.
If foundry dust is collected and combined with plastic waste in a 70-30 ratio, you get this, a silica plastic block. So Manish Kothari teamed up with Upcycle Chakra, a waste recycling company in Anand, to create the first silica plastic blocks in 2018. Each silica plastic block starts out as a dry mix of crushed plastic waste and foundry dust. This mixture is put through an extruder and comes out the other side in the form of a slurry ready to be molded into any shape or size required. Nitin Parmar, a worker at Upcycle Chakra, takes pride in turning heaps of waste into something useful.
My mother and wife say you can make something like this from plastic. It surprises them. They don't understand. In my village, nobody imagines we can make something like this from this waste. It surprises them all.
This could be a scalable new use for the 3 million tons of foundry dust India produces each year, using just a third of the energy needed to make conventional bricks. Kothari has found ways to recycle waste in remote places too.
What are we addressing? We are addressing a waste problem. The moment we are addressing a waste problem, so the waste is also at rural level, waste is also at taluka level. So we have now projects where we can work at 5 kg per hour. It's a lab model which can be fitted on one tabletop, or we can take it to 1500 kg or 4000 kg per hour, which is a modular expandable model.
At this construction site in Anand, the silica plastic tiles are being used to waterproof the walls. Nihar Agrawal of Upcycle Chakra says the tiles work much better than cement.
Usually, when you imagine bricks or cement, the first thing you think of is the water used for its curing. Pouring buckets full of water on it, that's a part of the process. Now, what if I told you that instead of that, the technology that is being used to make all the products is using water, which is even less than what a family of 4 uses in a month? That is how much. That's the only amount of water that goes into it.
amount of water that goes into it.
The silica plastic blocks are also 2.5 times stronger than regular bricks of the same price. Word of Kothari's work has also reached this firm in nearby Vadodara.
So in our office, we have staff who contributes plastic waste, brings it to the office, it is collected. So it is not that it is buck stuff, doesn't stop at one. It is to be collective and a larger community effort.
The collected plastic waste is transported 35 kilometers away to Anand for recycling. There, plastic is separated in preparation for processing with the foundry dust. While Upcycle Chakra mostly produces bricks for construction, they create custom products too. At the firm's office, silica plastic blocks serve as flooring, furniture, and even stationery.
So, for us now, waste is not kachra, waste is not waste, it is a raw material. So we have to change the connotation.
Manish Kothari's innovative process of mixing foundry dust with plastic is setting an example for waste recycling in the metals and engineering industries here. Such circular approaches to industrial byproducts open up new economic opportunities while helping to preserve the environment.
By 2030, the UN predicts that 60% of the global population will live in cities. Amid the rapid pace of urbanization, sustainable architecture has become a buzzword. But what does it even mean? Our reporter set off from Berlin to find answers.
Cities are growing, which means we keep on building. But know what else rises with those glossy flats? Emissions. We all need space to live, but building buildings is terrible for the planet. The construction industry accounts for almost 40% of global CO2 emissions.
That makes the pace of urbanization pretty alarming.
When we heard that one of the world's biggest Energy Plus apartment buildings was in Germany, well, what did you think we did?
We've come to the most energy efficient of them all, the Aktiv Stadthaus in Frankfurt.
This building actually generates more energy than it consumes, hence Energy Plus. And like proper reporters, we just barged into someone's house.
Hi.
This is David and his daughter Lola. And that's Juliana and 1-year-old Miro. They live in a pretty nice, pretty normal looking flat with a disco ball in the city center. But under this normal veneer, there's a robot lurking amongst them.
And this is the energy center of the house, so to speak.
Every flat comes with this iPad that shows you how much energy the building is producing from its solar panels and when. It also shows how much energy you're using and how that stacks up against your so-called budget.
You have this for warm water too, and there we're a bit over budget because the kids take baths.
Do you like taking baths? Yeah.
But what the weirdest thing about this whole thing is the ranking. So the whole 74 units of the house are rated concerning their energy and warm water use.
Where's the page where you can see what all your neighbors are up to?
Yeah, I think you can't. Which is good, I think. I think this whole thing is a bit weird. Gives this sort of a competitive feeling while it shouldn't be.
But don't humans need competition for change to happen? Anyway, the main question is, does the iPad work?
And when we first moved into the apartment, I did check it every day or every week or so, and we were like, oh yes, we're above the average or something. And now
it gives you kind of motivation to change your habits.
At the end of the day, we're still in Frankfurt, where the average salary is almost 60,000 euros a year. Living green is an expensive privilege here. And just because the building is green doesn't mean all its residents are.
Normal people live here. I mean, there's the Mercedes G-Class parking in the parking lot downstairs. Most people here just live normal Frankfurt lives. I don't know any Fridays for Future activists living here or something like that.
We had to cut our visit short because guess what? We got to meet the person behind the iPad. Frank Juncker is the chairman of Frankfurt City Housing Management. And he lives in the basement. Just kidding, he's showing us how this whole thing works.
The building was designed as a passive house. That means it's airtight and the energy it uses is regenerative.
What I didn't know was that it also comes from sewage.
There are massive sewage canals in every city, and that dirty water flows into a treatment plant, which has temperatures between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius. These plates remove energy from the wastewater. That energy is then sent to a heat pump, which is this massive device here. This generates heat for the whole building.
The Aktiv Stadthaus may be a success story, but it's built with all new materials, including lots of concrete. This is the Circular House in Berlin. It's a co-working and residential space that takes a totally different approach to green architecture. In professional speak, this is called the circular economy concept. So what does that mean?
When we say we build circular, there are two main aspects.
This is Simon Lee. He's the head of the Circular House project.
One is built from waste, from secondary resources basically. And let's build in a way that after the life cycle of a building, you can actually remove everything and reuse it or throw it on the compost.
For starters, the structure itself used to be the loading hall of an old brewery.
Everything has embedded value in it.
This is Dr. Nirmal Kishnani, a professor at the National University of Singapore and an expert in sustainable architecture.
That concrete, to build that, took a lot of carbon. And so you begin by recognizing the building itself as a kind of, as an asset.
We got a peek at the construction site of the residential floor, which will have 8 flats that share a large common area and kitchen.
So here you see we built 100% with wood. Nothing is nailed, nothing is glued, it's all screwed, so you can remove it like Lego. It's really 100% organic, so this is really just clay, and behind the clay is just straw. We have just put in a lot of dense straw and wood, and that's it.
They also used wood wool for insulation, compressed straw, upcycled plywood, hempcrete, a natural alternative to concrete made of hemp chives and lime, and recycled plastic bottle doors. Downstairs in the co-working area, Simon and his colleague Sasha showed me perhaps the world's most unknowingly famous meeting booths.
We rescued actually material from a Yoko Ono exhibition in Leipzig. It was actually assembled as coffins. We disassembled them and just built these meeting booths out of that.
All very cool, but how many of us have access to the people running Yoko Ono shows? Sourcing upcycled materials is not only hard, we simply don't have enough people doing it. Take it from an architect.
You need a whole industry to support that. It has to be done at scale. It's about building an ecosystem around this idea. I don't think it's just simple gesture of putting a piece of something from the old building into the new building.
So is it always better to repurpose an old structure than to build a new one?
If you look at it from the CO2 perspective, yes.
And why isn't there more of that happening?
Because it's challenging. It is more difficult. You need to put in the extra work to basically analyze the building. What can I do with it? What kind of resources does the structural system have? Is it even able to repurpose? For many, they feel if we just build new, we have everything under control and we don't have all these unknowns and we don't have any uncalculated risks.
This is Dr. Christine Lemaitre. She's the head of the German Green Building Council, and she spends most of her time reminding developers about this.
There's a cultural and climate context where buildings are happening and that the building has to react locally to the surroundings.
But good architecture is also about access. If greener buildings are just there for the 1%, then it fails as a social project. 40% of the living space in Circular House would be devoted to social housing, and most of its residents will be queer women of color. But these are just some of Germany's approaches to making architecture greener. Its focus is energy conservation through technology, which, of course, isn't the solution for everyone.
One fits all in the building industry is absolutely the wrong strategy, and a strategy we followed through so many years, and now we have to deal with all the consequences.
By 2025, 2/3 of the world's megacities will be in Asia, where the pace of urbanization and need for housing is incomparable to that of Germany.
Buildings after 30, 40 years are being torn down and being replaced because, the quality was not good or they're not modern anymore.
But whether it's Europe or Asia, building better will be a challenge everywhere because capital will always be impatient, as the architect Rahul Malhotra said. Investors want fast returns, but a building has many other stakeholders.
We have very different definitions of what a good building is. How do you negotiate these mindsets? How do you align people towards a common goal? I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we face in industry today.
The real solution might involve a total reconception of what we think architecture is, and for whom.
To Indonesia now, and a community in central Sulawesi province that was devastated by a series of natural disasters in 2018. Faced with the mammoth task of rebuilding, it rediscovered a traditional material, which it turns out can withstand natural hazards far better than most conventional building substances.
Central Sulawesi is no stranger to natural disaster. In 2018, the province was hit by a tsunami, landslides, and a series of earthquakes, including one with a magnitude of 7.4. Bolapapu was one of the many villages affected in Kulawi district, an area that's popular with tourists from Palu City. Together with the organization Architecture Sans Frontières Indonesia, a group of young men are now rebuilding flattened homes from scratch with bamboo. It's also hoped the project will provide economic stimulus.
At a glance, this looks like a lobo, a structure used as a traditional meeting place. But the details show similarities to original Kulawi houses called gampiri or bolanoa. There are slight differences. Most people today are only familiar with lobos and assume these new bamboo houses are like them. In fact, these houses are the same shape as older Kulawi houses. My main motivation was the need for shelter. We were informed that besides getting a house, we would also learn skills.
They were shown the design, and then were taught the whole process to turn the idea into reality, from harvesting the bamboo to finishing the construction. Long ago, Kulawi used to have a tradition of wood and bamboo architecture. With modernization, people began to build their homes with brick and concrete. Brick houses were prestigious, but the massive earthquake caused these houses to crumble, and many people were crushed under the heavy structures. Now residents are looking for safer alternatives. Bamboo is grown widely in Indonesia. It's lightweight and flexible, and is more earthquake resistant. Robani Romas has worked with Marwan and his friends for several months.
There are also ecological benefits to using bamboo, such as low carbon emissions and water conservation, because bamboo plants can restore groundwater in dry areas. Bamboo will also be able to restore damaged ecosystems in the region. Most importantly, bamboo is very interesting because it requires skilled manpower. That means, in addition to rebuilding homes for disaster survivors, we can also provide economic benefits for those who have joined the training program.
Bamboo houses do still, however, have an image problem, according to Rahmat Saleh. He's the director of the Central Sulawesi Karsa Institute, which is implementing the bamboo housing project in partnership with Architecture Sans Frontières Indonesia.
Data on poverty conducted by social and statistics agencies include certain indicators. One of them is the material that people use for their housing. The use of anything other than concrete is seen as an indication of poverty. Such categories affect the way we see things.
Housing built with concrete became an aspirational goal for many upwardly mobile families, even though it was not a construction material that was well suited to conditions here in the region. The Karsa Institute has now developed various building designs that use bamboo for private use and for public buildings, like local schools and the Posyandu Health Center. Marwan plans to move into his new bamboo house with his family soon, and he's proud of what he has learned along the way.
This chair that I'm sitting on now is a result of this training process. Before this, I found making a chair like this really difficult. It's a side benefit of the few months of training.
Before he built this house, Marwan earned his living doing odd jobs. But with his new set of skills, he hopes to make a new career for himself. Just like Marwan, many residents here now have safe homes, as well as the means to make a secure living in the future.
Ever wonder what it would be like to live in a hobbit home? Then stay tuned, because our next report explores the work of Swiss architect Peter West, whose organic earth homes are the epitome of climate-friendly design.
At first glance, this earth house in Switzerland embedded in nature looks more like a hobbit hole than a conventional home. But its aesthetic exterior conceals one of the most environmentally and climate-friendly homes available. They're the brainchild of Swiss architect Peter Fetsch, who invented these earth houses over 40 years ago.
It's just a logical solution in terms of environmental protection, integration and ecology.
Normally, houses take space away from nature. Here, vegetation can grow on the earth-covered roof, and the house melds harmoniously into the landscape.
Here there's a 50-centimetre layer of earth, but the cover increases in depth further up. On the top, there's 120 centimetres of earth, so a lot can grow. There isn't much ceiling. We're restoring green space.
Earth houses are low energy, foster biodiversity, and are cheaper to build than conventional houses. First, a woven steel grid is erected. This is then filled with concrete, and then covered with a layer of polyurethane, or clay. But what about the inside of the house? Our host was already expecting us. The house has curved walls, high rounded ceilings, and fanciful paintwork. The rooms fuse together elegantly. Herbert Umbricht has been living in this earth house for 31 years. He was fascinated by Peter Fetsch's design from the first time he saw it.
You don't notice you're under the earth. You've got these big windows and you see greenery everywhere you look. I'm comfortable living here, and the indoor climate is very steady.
These stone-carved houses in Tunisia, or these in Cappadocia, Turkey, served as inspiration for Peter Fetsch. He built his first earth house in 1974 for his own family. Today, there are about 100 in Switzerland, Austria, Germany, and on the Crimean Peninsula. He also designed an earth house-style public park in the small town of Dietikon, near Zurich. Generally, he's wary of the trend to integrate ever more high-tech elements in architecture.
There's a return to nature, to simplicity. Why all these expectations? People are born from the womb after all. It just felt like, click, why do we keep building everything square?
He's been retired for a long time, but that's not slowing him down, even at age 79. He's always working on new projects. He's currently designing an environmentally friendly apartment building.
This building method involves very few materials. I don't need to be all that precise. I'm not fitting boards down to the centimetre, so I can follow my intuition a lot more. I build houses a bit like a kid playing in a sandbox, increasing the height here or there. It's creative. If I could use 3D printing, that would be the best. Then I could make the design here in Switzerland, send it to China, and they'd print the houses.
These earth houses are ahead of their time, but more and more people are taking interest in alternative living concepts.
Lately, I've been getting more and more requests. People are paying greater attention to the environment, and they're realizing building a freestanding box isn't environmentally friendly.
Will our understanding of architecture change? How can we live more sustainably? Peter Fetch's design may provide at least partial answers to these questions.
Could you imagine living in an earth home like the one you just saw? There are a lot of realities to consider before taking that leap. And that's why we at Eco India will continue to give you perspective about the why and the how of going green. Stay tuned and we'll be back next week. From our entire team, goodbye and thanks for watching.